Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful July 4th holiday weekend. Hopefully it's been a long weekend for you, so you've taken a number of days off. I decided to stop with some chores and other family fun to shoot this video featuring 3 Hall of Famers elected by the Veterans Committee. They're all pitchers, veteran pitchers, and in the year in which they appear in these cards, 2 of them were retiring, and 1 was continuing on, although not doing very well for a few more years. In this first card, I'm going to talk not only about the players, but also about how I've collected and make a few observations about the actual cards themselves. What you see in front of you is a card of Pop Haines, who was a right-handed pitcher, played most of his career for the Cardinals. Rather lackluster career statistics: 210 wins, 158 losses, 3.64 ERA, 981 strikeouts. He was known as Pop because he had a great influence on younger players. He was also known for his knuckleball. He actually held the ball with his knuckles, throwing it as hard as he could. Now, you may ask, why is a player that maybe we haven't heard very much about and with such ordinary career achievements in the Hall of Fame? And you may ask that again and again in today's episode. And I think that is certainly a question I've been asking as I've dug into the stories of these players. Well, I find it very interesting that Frankie Frisch was a member of the Veterans Committee in 1970 when Pop Haines was elected. And Frankie, obviously famous longtime Cardinals, he shepherded the selections of a number of Cardinal players into the Hall of Fame while he sat as a member of the Veterans Committee. Bill James, famous Saber matrician, has listed Pop Haines as one of 10 examples of Hall of Fame inductees who do not deserve the honor. So what I'd like to share with you is I purchased this card from a very well-known dealer right when I was getting back into the hobby last summer of 2018. And I was just beginning to learn about, PSA and graded cards. And on this dealer's website, which was very easy for me as a newbie to access and print out, look at cards, and it just made it very easy to order from. I purchased what I thought was a PSA 5 of Jesse Haines and received this 7 with the off-center. Now, I am familiar now, of course, that pricing is typically 2 grades down when there is an off-center issue. So I didn't pay more. I didn't pay a PSA 7, but I did pay a PSA 5 price, albeit a very inflated price from this dealer, who's notorious for very high prices across the board. But they took the liberty of sending me this PSA 7 that's off-center, and I don't like that designation, and at some point when I upgrade, I'm going to upgrade this card out. But what I wanted to do as we move to our next player is show the vagaries or just the randomness of PSA grading. So if you look at the card here, this one's designated off-center, and you can certainly see why along the right margin. But this one is not considered off-center. In fact, it goes in the other direction. It's considered a 5.5. And from my eyes, it looks just as similar on the mirror side. So just as off-centered, albeit on the left side here. So I don't understand it. I've had to learn the hard way, I guess, and maybe others have, that to recognize that at the end of the day, PSA and the graders are all too human. Anyway, enough of my comment there. Let's talk about Rixey. In this card, he's featured in his last season. He was playing for the Reds. Rixey was a very interesting and unusual guy. He was an anomaly in his era. He was from a very well-off family. He was college educated. He wrote poetry, took graduate school classes in chemistry and math and Latin. In the off-season, he was a Latin teacher. And he was also considered one of the best golfers among athletes during this time period. So this setup made him the target of a lot of abuse and hazing by his fellow teammates. But I thought that was rather interesting because So many of the players back in this era came from very rough and ready backgrounds. Rixey, like Haines, did not put up the most dramatic results. His win-loss record in his career was 266 wins, 251 losses, 3.15 ERA. He was a very inconsistent performer. He won 22 games for the Phillies in 1916, but he also led the league in losses the next year with 21. Ferocious temper, hated losing, was known for destroying team locker rooms or disappearing for days after one of his losses. He once again elected by the Veterans Committee, and upon his election to the Hall of Fame, he was quoted as saying, "They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, aren't they?" So that's Faber Rixey. Next one up is Red Faber, longtime Chicago White Sox. He was a member of the famous, or infamous, I should say, 1919 team, but he wasn't involved in the Black Sox scandal because he missed the World Series due to some injury and illness. He served in the U.S. Navy during World War I, and when he had lost a lot of weight during the war, and that made him vulnerable to a lot of sicknesses, including what was a worldwide flu at the time, known as the Spanish flu pandemic. And he was very sick with that when the scandal-torn World Series was played by the White Sox against the Reds. So he was not part of that scandal. Similar statistics as Faber Rixey, lifetime for Faber, 254 wins, 213 losses, ERA of 3.15. Interestingly, Faber was one of the last legal spitballers in the league, and he also has the notable characteristic of having been one of only 6 pitchers to win 100 or more games in the dead ball era, so that's up through 1920, and another 100 games after in the live ball era. His statistics further, I think, if you widen the context and understand, he was playing for the White Sox, who, in the wake of the 1919 scandal, were really just an awful team throughout the 1920s. And so Faber's results were, pitching for a team that was really had only 2 winning seasons in 13 years. Faber holds the White Sox franchise record for most games pitched, and he had held the team records for career wins, starts, games, and innings until that was broken by Ted Lyons, who we've seen in another one of my videos. So, hope you found today's episode interesting and part of the continuing education as we continue to move through the 1933 Goudey series. Hope you like the story of the players and can appreciate some of my frustration with the grading and the randomness. Take care. Happy 4th, everyone.